Aaron Rodgers spoke about the potential of wanting to come back and play next season despite all the struggles from this year, and had this to say.
You talked about wanting to play beyond this year before. Has the way this season gone for you or as a team changed that thought at all?
Not really. Not for the negative, no, not really.
Do you still want to play in 2025?
I think so, yeah.
How do you feel about how you played this year? Are you playing the way you thought you would play, coming back from everything?
No, I mean, I'm not playing as well as I would have liked to play, for sure. The beauty in this game is it's a team game. The frustrating part is that, if you're a great competitor, you hold yourself to a standard, and it's not unrealistic, and I haven't reached that standard this year.
So, do you believe Rodgers comes back and is quarterbacking for the Jets next year? Because even if he does, my thought is they're still drafting a quarterback. They're going to be picking high enough that I can't imagine they would go another year and not address the situation long term. But I just wonder, you're going to have a new coach. Do they want to deal with all that? It hasn't been smooth. I know Devontae Adams is going to be there. Are they running this thing back for one final chapter in Aaron Rodgers' career?
Don't you guys wonder, though, if that factors into his decision? I mean, there's a lot of things that are up in the air. Who's going to be their head coach? If they come to him and they say, we're going to draft a quarterback to eventually replace you, there's that thought too, right? Maybe that deters him from wanting to come back. Because if he's playing the way he is now next year, whoever they draft, people are going to be clamoring for him. And he's probably thinking to himself, like, do I really want to deal with that? I mean, I'm a first ballot Hall of Famer, and this is how I'm going to go out. So I don't know. I mean, I think he'll come back because I don't think he wants the season to end the way this one seems like it's going to. I mean, even if they won out, I'm not sure they would make the playoffs. So that's the tough part, is there's still so much football left to be played. The topic is probably a better conversation in like 4 weeks when we have a more definitive answer of where they're at, or maybe just a week from now if they lose again this week. But those have to be some of the factors. It's got to be about who's the head coach. Are you going to draft one? And if you do, are you being frank with me up front about it? What's the plan for that? And does he want to have to deal with that heading into 2025, possibly his last year?
Yeah, I think it's about everything else outside of Aaron Rodgers in this scenario. Like when I think a major point, a good point is, how do they finish out this season? Well, I think a lot of those players, if you're really looking at this team and how serious in nature the situation is for the Jets to win, they should have been thinking about how important it was to win before you got to the point of now looking at how important it is to win. And meaning that to get to 3 wins over the course of 9 games, I believe it's 9 games. They're 3-6, I believe. Maybe 3-6, right? 3-6, maybe. Anyway, the point is that they've lost at such a rapid clip.
3-7.
3-7. Okay, yeah. They've lost at such a rapid clip at this point. The sad thing about all of this is you'll find that they'll lose some of these games that they weren't even supposed to lose, because some of these guys their minds are wandering. There's self-preservation. Guys don't want to get hurt, whatever it may be. And they'll mess around and they'll lose some of these games that they shouldn't lose. Like say, for instance, losing to, I don't know, it could – something like a Jacksonville Jaguar game could sneak up on them. I really do look at it from the standpoint of if we're basing it off of how they finished this season, and I don't believe they're going to finish with more. Again, I capped them off at 9. Y'all went a little lower. Go figure. I capped them off at 9. I wouldn't be surprised if they only win 2-3 more games. So if they're at 6-7 wins for the season, they're definitely bringing in a new head coach. Now the question becomes, Q, you probably know this. What is the implications of releasing Aaron Rodgers? Because I seriously doubt that there's a tremendous amount of trade value for what it would take to get Aaron Rodgers through a trade. I would rather wait and see if they release him
He's got a no trade clause, so
Okay,
even if
so
someone
then-
came
okay.
out, he would have to agree to it.
okay.
Yeah, I think in that case, he'd probably rather retire.
What is the hit against their cap? Is it a significant hit?
Yeah, the Jets are going to have to carry a dead cap hit of over $66 million.
Yeah, that's high.
So that's regardless
Yeah.
of if there's a trade scenario. That wouldn't really transition over. He only carries a little over $17 million cap hit for next. Reading the wrong year.
Okay.
It's a $49 million dead cap hit next year.
Okay.
His cap hit, if someone was to trade for him and he agreed to it in that instance, it would be about a little over $23 million, about $23.5
Cut
million.
it by half. They're going to try to trade him. They're going to
I
try
don't
to
think
trade
that's
him.
the case. Because they can try, but like he can just say, well, I'm going to retire then. And now you don't have him, you don't get an asset back for him, and you're still eating the dead cap.
You got to pay him. Or do you? It's just dead cap because what? He's not.
Because they've already guaranteed that money's to him. Those monies to
Right.
him. And so
Yeah.
they've either paid it out through like his signing bonus.
Even if he doesn't play.
He was guaranteed $75 million at signing. I'm trying to look for the signing bonus numbers. I have to go back and look through this, but
there's a lot of trapping going on. Let me tell you something. God bless all of you quarterbacks because y'all out here trapping. Like, this is what you call trapping. What Deshaun Watson did, trapping. What sounds like from Aaron Rodgers, trapping. Dak Prescott, his latest contract, trapping. Like, there's a lot of trapping going on out here. Trevor Lawrence, trapping.
I mean,
all I would say is this. If that's the scenario that plays out, is that you're stuck with Aaron Rodgers, which is crazy to say at this point. If you're stuck with Aaron Rodgers, I'm not taking the New York Jets coaching job. I'm not doing it because all you're doing is rolling the dice on if this man plays well, then I have a tap. I survived the year. I just don't. Unless he's a close friend of Aaron Rodgers, I just don't see a quality coach wanting to take that job under these circumstances, which means it's more about the team and the Jets and how they want to handle this scenario versus Aaron Rodgers.
well, yeah, but if you're going quarterback early in the draft, if they're picking in the top 5, let's say, or they're picking in the top 10, you're most likely going to end up with a quarterback there. Like, it's not the worst situation in the world to have Rodgers be the veteran ahead of that young quarterback.
I think if you know Aaron Rodgers, I do not think that it's a healthy situation, knowing his influence over Woody Johnson in that scenario. I do not think it's a healthy situation for a coach to have a fair opportunity to have success.
I think Rodgers understands that he's lost all ability to just dictate everything
No, he hasn't.
at his.
I don't think so.
I think he's
I don't
more.
think
I think
so.
he's more realistic at this point. I really do. I think he looks at it and goes, "Yeah, so I've got 1 year left. I'm going to be a great mentor to this guy, like I was for Jordan Love, and like Brett Favre wasn't."
He didn't
for me.
like that. He didn't like the fact that Jordan Love. He didn't like the fact that they ever brought in any quarterbacks while he was there. He didn't like it.
Yeah, but this is a different time. Like this is.
But
Well,
it's
and-
Aaron Rodgers.
I also think there's an element, and because Ben Roethlisberger felt the same. Remember when they drafted,
Yeah.
was it Mason Rudolph in the second
Mason
round or
Rudolph.
someone?
and
Yeah.
he called into a weekend sports show in Pittsburgh to complain about it.
Well, because at that point in their career, they're still playing at a high level. Rodgers was still winning MVPs. And yet, instead of drafting to support him, they drafted to replace him. So, of course, that would tick you off. Look, maybe he feels different now at this point in time in his career, but
I don't think so.
I think you could, to your point, I think you could make the case that because of how this year has gone, like they need more help than ever. I mean, and they've obviously have tried
get
to with
help.
Devontae Adams.
They're going to look at it as get him more help versus get him his replacement. His replacement is not his help. Not in his mind. He's not going to interpret that as
and
help.
The other thing is you're assuming they're in a position to take who is someone they feel really good about at quarterback. I mean, outside of Shedeur Sanders,
Yeah.
it starts to kind of drop off with how some of the guys have played. Now, Cam Ward's up there, but as I said before, some people will feel like, oh, is he big enough to withstand 17 games, yada, yada, yada. Once we get to that time of the year, I'm just telling you now, you can shoot the messenger all you want, but these are some of the things that I see, and this is how this works. I've been through the process. This is where it's going. So they're going to start to look at Carson Beck, for example. If he declares and comes out, and they're going to say, poor decisions, some bad games. He's not played up to the level that he did the second half of last year, where people started looking at him as potentially the number one overall quarterback. And in particular, the last 3-4 games, it's been bad. I mean, some really poor performances. Now, he hasn't gotten help, and the O-line was a mess in particular last week, but still, that's going to hurt him. Cam Moore, I've talked about the size, but also there's, and this is what one scout said to me. They said, well, we don't feel like he plays within the confines of the offense. You have to in the NFL to succeed. And that's true, but you also have to have that special ability to create and make plays, which he does. And I also feel like his poise and composure in so many tight situations like we've seen this year have led him to have success and comebacks wins versus Cal and Virginia Tech and others. So, I'm a big fan of Cam Ward. I don't see it the same way other people do, but those are just some of the conversations about it. So the question then becomes, if you are the Jets, are you just going to take a quarterback to take a quarterback? If you don't really feel that good about it, you might say, let's go take a guy we know can start player for the future. And then we can, look to take a quarterback when we feel like we need one, because we don't feel like we need one right now. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very likely scenario for the Jets.
And what's crazy is, how do you come away feeling positive that that's how you should feel with the way this team is playing currently? And then you got to think, like, you're wasting valuable time, because this now will be, year 4 for guys like Sauce Gardner. There's guys that are, you're probably going to want to restructure their contracts at some point. Like, you're not going to be able to hold this amount of talent on one roster too much longer. I don't see it that way.
I mean,
you're wasting time.
I just think to have this discussion.
Why you have your hand up like that?
Because to have this discussion and not bring up the fact that Greg Zuerlein ruined this year for the New York Jets, I think is unfair to all parties involved. Okay.
Something.
I don't know.
2 different conversations before and after Greg Zuerlein.
They still have lost after him.
This will come down to this. Because there's nothing, I mean, maybe they could restructure a little bit of Rodgers' cap hit to reduce the $23.5 million if they feel like he's the guy next year, and they're all in for one more year. Like, I think one of the more likely scenarios is Jeff Albright ends up being the head coach into next year. They kind of keep things as is, could try to go all in one more year, and then at that point they break down, rebuild. I could be 100% wrong. But they're going to have $34 million in cap space. That's not including whatever additional cap savings that they could potentially have, or any restructurings that lead to that. So to your point about Sauce Gardner, some of the others, they could restructure those contracts, extend them. But Woody Johnson's going to have to pay a decent amount of cash. He's going to have to pay out more cash to those guys. So rightfully so, they're very deserving of it. And I think, when you talk about, which guys you're going to be paying out or which guys you have to extend, those are the guys who are building blocks, right? Like, they're not going anywhere. They should be Jets for over 10 years, whether it's Quinn Williams, Sauce Gardner, whoever. So that's the one good thing about it is I think if you are paying those guys, you feel good about having those guys in your roster with life after Rodgers.
What this situation...
Well, I was just going to say, so basically do what the Raiders are probably going to do. You keep AP for another year after he's the interim guy, and then you just blow everything out and make some changes after the season.
Oh, that isn't what's happened. Jeez.
Well, I'm just saying, but that's probably what's going to happen.
What this situation, this is what this situation in New York feels like. Lee, you were there with me. The situation feels like you're at the table, and when you brought Aaron Rodgers in, you were up. Like, felt good about it. You were winning. You made a great decision. This is going to change your outcomes, everything is made right. Mm-hmm. And then you start to see losses. You start to see things not go the way that you thought they were going to go, right? But you're looking at how much you have. You're looking at what you could win. You're looking at the possibilities. And what did I keep doing, Lee? What did you keep doing?
Kept on playing.
Kept on playing. That's what this situation reminds me of. Woody Johnson has a situation where he's sitting at the table. He should pick his chips up and effing run away from the table. But he's faced with the idea of, what kept me at that table is the potential and the possibilities of knowing that this is a 50-50 proposition. And by a stroke of maybe fate, a stroke of luck, me staying in there one more hand changes my outcomes. It changes everything about what this moment in time represents.
You know what else keeps you at the table?
What?
When somebody walks behind you as you're getting ready to leave, and
What?
they go,
What?
cocktails, and then you have another one, and they just keep you there.
No,
That's how they get
that's more Lee.
Oh.
We did drink a lot that day, though.
You guys were smoking. You guys
We
were
did.
smoking cigars,
And we were smoking
at
cigars.
11:30 in the morning. You hadn't slept after the show.
What's wrong with that?
One note is the Jets will have the second oldest roster in the NFL next year,
Oh, wow.
assuming Rodgers does come back, which obviously inflates that number.
Who's got the oldest?
The San Francisco 49ers.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, their average age is 28 years old.
Yeah, this might be it for them, too.
Yeah.
Might be heading
No, I
towards
got
the
news
end.
for you. Last year was it for them.
Might be boys to men, although we come to the end of the road. boy.
Although we've come
Yeah.
to the end of the road, still I can't let go.
Let go.
We got Albert Breer
We got
next.
Albert Breer.
He's going to talk about Ohio
He's a
State probably.
natural.
I'm going to let you take it all the way to the break.